walls on the outside of this existing bowl. This is the stadium. And you're going to compare that to this? Like, you want to talk about intellectual dishonesty. I mean,
so Juck over.
We cannot allow everything to be stripped away from us because they change the formats around us, the traditions, the stadiums, the uniforms, the rivalries. We allow them to devalue it. We lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. I don't know. Maybe it's just my age. And welcome into Juck on Bucks on an old school intro today. I played the old school intro today because we have reached another milestone. 1 million views since we started the show a year and I don't know, a week or 2 weeks ago. Amazing. 1 million views, man. That's a pretty cool milestone. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you. It's been a tremendous amount of fun, and we keep on growing, keep on getting bigger and better. I like to think I'm improving every day. At least I try to anyway. But another week down, it's another Monday, and we are just a couple of weeks now away from spring practice opening. That's going to be tremendous. I'm curious to see how many days we're going to get media access in the Woody. It seems like every year it's kind of knocked one day off, one day off, one day off. Last year, they probably only had 4 days that they were up there. And those are cool because we get some footage out of there, which I love. I want to see the young guys. I want to see the guys fighting for position battles. I really want to see Jalen McClain at that safety battle. I want to see Mylan Graham. Really want to get my eyes on him. I think he might be the breakout story from spring this year, which would be really cool to see that. But the combine has wrapped up, and we got some news from the combine, from the Buckeyes at the combine, from a couple of big mouths at the combine who did not back it up. That's for sure. We got to make sure we highlight that. And as far as our Buckeyes at the combine, we had 3 run 40-yard dashes: Denzel Burke, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. I wasn't sure, and I really didn't think that Quinshon or Travion were going to run that at the combine. I thought they would do that at Pro Day, if at all. And I honestly didn't think Travion would run it at all, unless he knew he had a ridiculous time in him, because you don't have to run the 40. If you have shown on the field that you are one of the fastest guys in college football, unless you're really going to just put up a ridiculous time, I wouldn't run it. But Travion runs a 4.43, which is a really good time. It wasn't the fastest from the backs this year by any means, but I think he is the fastest on the field, and that's why I wouldn't have run it. These 40s, which I've always loved to track, but the truth is you're starting from a sprinter stance, and that is a different skill set than if you are a football player running and accelerating. It's just different. So Travion Henderson went into his interview saying that he is looking to highlight his pass protection. He certainly put some good stuff on film regarding that this past year, and he weighed in at 202 pounds, 5'10" and 1/8, broad jumped 10 feet 8 inches, and ran his 4.43. Quinshon Judkins came in at 5'11.5", 221 pounds, broad jumped 11 feet, which is tremendous for that weight, and ran a 4.48. Will Howard threw the ball around. A lot of these quarterbacks elect not to throw and wait to do it at their pro day, then at the combine. Will took it on. I like that he did it. There was a lot of, being in Indianapolis, Ohio State and Michigan fans there, so he had a lot of cheers, had a lot of boos, and he said he was feeding off it, which is cool. I really like that. But everybody who, grades these guys out said that Will did a really good job. His footwork looked good. His arm looked good. He had a couple he said he would have liked to have back. And he came in there looking amazing. So when he first came from K-State to Ohio State, he was maybe 10 or 12 pounds over his ideal weight. And then when we saw him come out in spring, he was incredibly lean, in great shape. And it looked like over the season, he put a couple of those pounds back on. So he comes into the combine, to those interviews, looking unbelievable, really lean. Weighing in at 236, as lean as he is, 6'4.25". He's just a big guy, man. And that's great. 31.25 inch vertical, 9 foot 4 inch broad jump. And I don't know, those are fine, whatever. He's a quarterback that we've all seen what he can do with his legs, which is enough, certainly enough. He's a mobile quarterback, and he threw it good. So good for him. And I'm really excited to see what team it is going to take a flyer on him. Denzel Burke, we talked about his 40 the other day. That was a 4.48. He was 5'11" and a quarter inch, 186 pounds. And then, I saw some people saying like only 3 of these Ohio State guys run. Why don't Ohio State guys ever run at the combine? And the reason is when you have a pro day that every single NFL team attends, and you can do these tests, number one, with a little more time to prepare. Number two, with your own locker, your own bed, your own food, on your own turf that you're used to, that's a tremendous advantage. So obviously they would rather do that at their pro day if they're going to run. Other heights and weights from those Buckeyes. We had, this is pretty funny here. So Tyreek and Ty Hamilton, the exact same height at 6'2" and 7/8 inch. Jack Sawyer and JT, the exact same height at 6'4" and a quarter. So that's pretty funny. The two running mates inside and outside, exact same heights. Not weight. Ty Hamilton was 299. Tyreek was 334. Jack was 260. JT 265. JT's wingspan 5 inches longer than Jack's. In fact, JT's wingspan at 83 3/8 inches, bigger than Josh Simmons, a left tackle. Jordan Hancock and Lathan Ransom, both just over 6 foot. Hancock was 195, Ransom 206. Cody Simon, 6'1" and 7/8 inch, 229 pounds of twisted steel. And the 3 linemen, Donovan Jackson, 6'3" and 5/8, 315 pounds. Seth McLaughlin, this one surprised me. He was 6'4" and 3/4. 6'4" even and 304 pounds. And I thought maybe that 6'4" was a little bit of an embellishment. I thought maybe he was more like 6'2 and a half, 6'3", but he's a full 6'4", so that's really good for his draft stock. Josh Simmons was 6'4" and 7/8 inch, 317 pounds. And for a guy who carries weight well, like he's pretty lean, that's really good. That's really good. 33-inch arms. Donovan Jackson's wingspan was also bigger than Josh Simmons at 83 3/4 to 82, which is pretty interesting for Donovan Jackson, the guard, Josh Simmons, the tackle. Now, that's it for our Buckeyes. We know that everything is bigger in Texas, including their mouths. And Texas wide receiver Isaiah Bond said that he was going to break the record in the 40-yard dash time set by former Texas wide receiver Xavier Worthy. That was a 4.21, which is just ridiculous to even say out loud in the era of laser-timed 40s. We've all heard stories about Dion, about Bo Jackson, and sure, we'd love to believe them, but they weren't laser-timed 40s, and there's no record of them. But this kid comes in and says he's going to break Xavier Worthy's 40, and he didn't even beat Matthew Golden, who's on his own team. Matthew Golden ran a 4.3. Isaiah Bond ran a 4.4. That's pretty embarrassing. And you got to wonder, when you're preparing for this thing, like you're getting timed, you're doing practice runs, why would you come out and say that if you know you're not even going to come close? Because 4.21 and 4.4 really aren't close, even though it kind of sounds close. It's not. So that's pretty embarrassing for our guy there. But no more embarrassing than Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson had a bad weekend. So Tez Johnson, the Oregon wide receiver, who I think is an excellent wide receiver. I played his clip the other day, him coming out and saying about the first Ohio State game, Ohio State tried to match skill for skill, and they couldn't hang. And then in game 2, they didn't match skill for skill, essentially calling them scared. And they were so scared that they beat Oregon 34-0, because if we're being honest, that's when the game was over. Remember, Tez Johnson, the guy who also stayed on the field after the Rose Bowl when Will Howard was giving his interviews, to stand there and patiently wait to say some incredibly nice, encouraging things to Will. You deserve this. You've earned it. Lead those guys. They'll follow you. Like, it was awesome. And I was like, man, I really like this guy. Then he comes out and says that. Anyway, I was pretty surprised by it, but he had a nightmare of a day. First, he weighed in at 154 pounds at 5'9". I don't know how you are 22 years old and go through a strength and conditioning program in major college football and come out of there at 154 pounds. Then he ran his 40 at 154 pounds, a 4.54 and a 4.51. That is not just bad, it's historically bad. In fact, since 2003, no wide receiver weighing less than 170 pounds has ever run that slow in the 40. That's under 170 pounds. So we're talking guys at 169, 165. He's 155. Many people were saying that this is like he's knocked himself off draft boards. This is undrafted free agent territory with those numbers. But we've all seen this guy on the football field. I'm not concerned about that 40. This guy will juke you out of a phone booth. He has uncommon feet. I mean, incredibly quick, and he gets to top speed in a hiccup. So to me, that football tape is more valuable than that 40 time. And again, I'll go back to these are guys getting out of a sprinter stance. It's a different skill set. It really is. In fact, if I was, let's say, an NFL wide receiver coach, what I would love to do for these wide receivers is have them run a go route from a wide receiver stance and have them clocked at 10, 20, 30, and 40 yards. Like that's a much more accurate way to do this if you're trying to see really who's the fastest. But Tez Johnson is fast as hell. So whatever. My issue is that this guy is 154 pounds. Like that's like a guy in ninth grade, man. I don't know how you can look past that. I just have a hard time thinking a 154 pounder going to survive long in the NFL. So that to me is the bigger thing there. But that's some karma for talking that smack incorrectly about the Buckeyes. All right, just a smidge here of maybe a bit of an NFL take here for a second. This might be karma for me. I don't know that anybody has hated on Colorado the past 2 years more than myself. And I get it. Anytime I bring him up, you guys tell me like, dude, you're such a hater. And I understand I am. And I get it. But my Cleveland Browns with the number 2 overall pick, there's starting to be a lot of buzz about them potentially taking Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders and talk about him wanting to be a Brown. He walked around with a backpack and he had 3 hats on the backpack, a Vikings hat. The Vikings got JJ McCarthy. They're not looking for a quarterback. I think the other one was maybe the Falcons, somebody else with a quarterback, and then the Browns, the only team that doesn't have a quarterback. Then there was a clip of him. It was a staged clip of him saying he only plays as the Browns on Madden and put that out there to let everybody know, yeah, he wouldn't mind being a Brown, which is interesting because not too long ago, Dion was talking about teams that he wouldn't want his son to play for. The Browns were one of them. So I didn't anticipate this at all. And I'm just coming off of Deshaun Watson, who kind of universally hated amongst Browns fans, myself included. This is a way less talented guy, man, way less talented. And he came out and said in his interview, if you're not changing the franchise or the culture, don't get me. You should know that history repeats itself. And I've done it over and over, talking about how he went to FCS Jackson State and made them a better team, and then went to Colorado and made them a better team in the Big 12. Then he said his best attribute is not his leg or his arms, it's mental, and reminded everybody that that's what Tom Brady had. He could think. Tom Brady, according to Tom Brady, his best advantage was his preparation. He prepared like a madman. And I want a confident quarterback. I also want a quarterback who's smart enough to know not to compare himself to Tom Brady before he's ever played in the NFL. I just don't think he's a franchise quarterback, man. I don't. I think he's an all right quarterback. I would love to have Cam Ward. I think he has an elite arm. I think he is Cam Ward. Here's a story about Cam Ward. When Cam Ward first was going down to Miami, he got the numbers of all the wide receivers and he put them on a group text and he texted it out. Hey, we're going to be down here at the facility throwing tomorrow at 10 or whatever it was. One of the wide receivers sends back in the group text message, I'm in, it was in, somewhere northern Florida, working out with an NFL wide receiver or something like that. And Cam Ward said, is he throwing you the ball next year? Because if you're not down here tomorrow, I won't be. Of course, the dude came down, but that's the kind of stuff I like. And everything Cam Ward's done in this process, like I've been like, yeah, that's the guy. I certainly want him. Now, I know you Steelers and Bengals fans probably laughing at us like you usually do, but yeah, I don't want Sanders. I would take Jackson Dart over him. I'd trade back and get Will Howard over him. Like that, this is not the guy I want. And knowing the luck I get with the Cleveland Browns is probably the guy I'm going to be stuck with. At any rate, we got one more big mouth of the weekend. And as we know, the Buckeyes not the Buckeyes, the Horseshoe hosted a hockey game, which is so cool. Look at the picture of this. Absolutely gorgeous. Seeing the hockey rink there. You got the stripe painted on the sides. I guess the issue is if you're a hockey fan, like you're kind of set back pretty far from the ice. I mean, that's a whole lot of prime real estate there that's not being used. So I mean, it's a cool experience, but you're nowhere near the action. So this game gets played between the Blue Jackets and the Detroit Red Wings, and the Detroit Red Wings got a guy who went to Michigan on the team, and here's what he had to say about his experience.
You know, there's a lot of excitement with the guys, and you know, it's pretty cool to just do something. You know, it's something different, and it's probably the ugliest stadium I've ever been in, but it's cool to play hockey outside, and you know, it's always special to have the family skate out there, and you know, so practice was great, and then the family skate's always really special.
That's respect for the rivalry. You know, I love that. Take a shot wherever you can. However, you're telling on yourself that you're just totally biased when you say something like that. This is a stadium that was designed 100 years ago and looks like something straight out of Rome. It's a neoclassical design at a stadium with a rotunda and stained glass. If you think that's the ugliest stadium you've ever played, I would love to know what he thinks about this thing. This thing. This right here. Like this is just a hole in the ground, man. Look at this. Now here's where they start. Okay, we're going to make this more than a hole in the ground. We're going to build a couple of brick structures on the outside of it and make them overhang into the stadium. Look, now we're going to make this look like these are part of the structure. They're not. There's some brick walls on the outside of this existing bowl. This is the stadium, and you're going to compare that to this? Like, you want to talk about intellectual dishonesty? I mean, look at this thing. The bell towers in the end. Look, it's gorgeous neoclassical architecture. This is not the same thing. This is not even in the same ballpark. However, I guess I respect it. You know how I am with the rivalry. I respect it. Texas A&M's Shamar Stewart had one of the best combines ever, like in the history of the combine. He's an edge rusher from Texas A&M, an incredibly cool dude, not an incredibly productive dude, but he was amazing, like Myles Garrett combine numbers. And he came out and said this in his interview.
So JJ started that pace, and
he's talking about RJJ.
So JJ started that pace, and I think one of the first couple practices out there, he came and started bombing like the older guys from one hand. I'm like, who is this guy? I'm like, bro, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you keep doing what you're doing, one day you're gonna be the best to ever do it. And hey, what do I know? I ain't no genius, but I think I was pretty right.
Hey, what do I know? I'm not a genius, but I think I was pretty right. He thinks he was pretty right. You may be the best to ever do it. And we've only seen JJ play as a freshman. That's the kind of love this guy's getting around college football amongst studs. And that's pretty awesome, man. That is pretty awesome. For those who don't know, a lot of our wide receivers, including the 3 starting wide receivers next year, Jeremiah Smith, Brandon Innis, Carnell Tate, all played for South Florida Express, which is a 7-on-7 team in South Florida. And some good connections with the Buckeyes. Well, they have gotten some new uniforms. I hate 7-on-7 uniforms. They're like, I don't know, they look like they're from the 90s with, actually, I kind of like that look with the pink and the highlighter colors. They look just, I don't know why that became the style of them, but they've got new ones. And here are the new South Florida Express uniforms. You can't see it up close, but they got the Buckeye stripes on the shoulder. The South Florida Express Buckeyes. Bravo. Bravo, SFE. We do love that. We got another transfer portal coming up at the end of April. So it's like April 14th to 25th. It'll be open for 10 days. Now, this second portal is usually not as robust with talent. There's not a lot of big names, usually not any quarterbacks, but you can definitely find some good scores in here. This is last year, Ohio State just added Keenan Nelson Jr., the safety, out of the spring portal. All the other moves were done early on. This year, I think that Ohio State will be looking to add a couple more pieces in the spring portal. But as we talk about the portal class as it exists right now, The Athletic did another one of their Portal Confidential pieces, and I want to share a couple of the answers. This is where they go talk to general managers, college football coaches, and have them answer questions off the record, compile these answers, and it's usually pretty fun to go through some of these. But the Buckeyes got some love here. So when they asked these guys, one of the questions was, who is the player, the one single player that your team didn't get that you most liked in the entire portal? And one of these coaches, coach number 8 out of 10, answered Max Clare, the tight end for Purdue, who transferred to Ohio State. He is improving in all facets of his game, but as far as what he does from his pass catching ability and his route running, he is a problem. Second question, whose portal class did you like the best? We have 3 answers here. Coach number 3, Ohio State did a great job. They just get really, really good quality. They're very efficient in getting what they need in the portal. And Oregon, both of those squads took some of the surefire guys and helped areas they needed. Coach number 8, Ohio State killed it to me. Coach number 9, Oregon. They're at the point where they specialize in this. They're going to just get 6 or 7 guys that are just elite. Did anyone's portal class surprise you? You look at Oregon's class, the linemen they got, Isaiah World, Emmanuel Pregnon, money talks. Based off what you know, what's the going rate for starting caliber positions? We've got 900,000 to 1.4 for a quarterback. We've got another coach saying that wide receivers who are any good are $1 million. Low end, 200,000 to 300,000. Elite guys, 800 to $1 million. The floor for a cornerback is 200,000 to 400,000. A top tier running back, 800,000. An offensive tackle, $1 million. What was the boldest request you received from the transfer portal? These ones I love. 300,000 and a guarantee of 90% of the snaps. I've not heard of that. Putting a number on how many snaps you get. $400,000 from a guy who made 30 tackles the previous year. A backup offensive lineman said he wanted 300,000. He had played 19 snaps the previous year. An agent said to me, you need to think outside the box like crypto and gold bars. And I was thinking, what the hell is crypto? That's a football coach. Somebody asked one guy for babysitting services. He wanted babysitting services. And an offensive tackle said, if you give me $715,000 and a car, I will sign. But it sounds like a lot of people think that Ohio State and Oregon have been the 2 best portal classes. And when we look at those 2 portal classes, we see that needs were definitely addressed with high-level talent. And that's the goal. And that's what everybody's shooting for. They met all their needs. Oregon had more. They've got a bigger portal class, you can see, but it's not a huge portal class, 10 guys. Ohio State addressed a lot of their needs, 6 guys. Is there anything that you would like to see the Buckeyes add in the portal class in the spring? If there is another offensive tackle who's maybe a little more of a developmental guy, I think we could definitely use some depth there. That would be a good one. A stud defensive tackle would be good. Someone who could come in and take some of the playing time from Caden McDonald and Edric Houston, be like a number 3 guy there, like Logan George is hopefully going to be on the edge. I think that would be a good one because we don't know what Jason Moore is going to bring yet. And we don't know what Will Smith or Ty Malone is going to bring yet, but having that and, you get the whole spring to look at who you got there at Taiwan, Jason Moore, Will Smith Jr. You got all spring to look at them. And if they're not coming around the way you want, going into the portal and maybe getting a 3rd guy to back those 2 up would be really nice. So that's what I'm looking at, as well as, a home run safety would just be great too, but we'll see. Hey, if you get a chance, please like the show, subscribe, hit that alarm bell so you don't miss our weekend shows. We just went live on Saturday. I hope you were here to see it. If you're listening on podcast, we need some more reviews on Apple Podcast. If you could please pop a review on there, that would be fantastic. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Let's move on to a couple of new rules. Now, the rules committee gets together in April and votes on these rules. What we've got right now are some proposals for new rules. Now, I told you about the American Association of Coaches proposal for the rule to get rid of faking injuries. And their rule proposal is if you go down, then you have to come out, not for one play, but for the rest of the series. There is a way around this. The coach can burn a timeout and get you back in. There's a lot of criticism of this proposal. And the criticism is, what if one of these guys has a heart condition or something and he doesn't know about it yet? Young guys, you know what I mean? And he doesn't want to go down, but he feels like he should, but he fights it. He fights it because he doesn't want to, because the penalty is so big now that he's got to sit out for a whole series or waste a timeout. So he fights through it, and then the worst thing happens, right? What if a guy like, who would have come out with a concussion, what have you? You know what I mean? Like, it makes sense. I get it from that perspective. There's another proposal now, and the proposal here is from the whatever association this one is. It's another one that proposes rules, and they've proposed like 5. This one is one that Kirby is the co-chair on. I was so mad at him. Kirby, single-handedly the reason why we have the clock not stopping after first downs, which I hate. The reason behind that was not to shorten games, but to literally play less football plays in a game. And I'm not a fan of less football. By the way, games did not get shortened. Despite playing less plays, games are longer now. So that if that was the intended reason for somebody, or somebody was like, well, at least we'll get shorter games now, that didn't happen. At any rate, their proposal to stop people from the injury faking thing is, we're not going to penalize you if it's before they spot the ball. But once the referee spots the ball, if you go down, it's going to cost you a timeout, or it's going to cost you a 5-yard penalty if you don't have a timeout. So once the ball is spotted, if you go down now, donezo. But they're giving you that grace period. If you want to fake your injury, fake it before they spot the ball and you're good. So that is the proposal from these guys, and I think that's the proposal that'll probably get adopted. A couple other reactionary ones. You've got last year's Georgia Tech game where Kirby called a timeout every single overtime. Remember, it went to like 7 overtimes. Called a timeout every single one. It took forever. Well, now you're only going to get 1 timeout after overtime number 3. You're not going to get a timeout each overtime. That was another one in reaction to a game. Then you've got, of course, the Dan Lanning rule, where they're going to allow the offense the opportunity to put the time back on the clock if somebody pulls that 12th man on the field, therefore rendering that move useless. So nobody can ever do that again. And you got the Shane Beamer rule. Do you remember the fight between Brett Bielema and Shane Beamer at the bowl game? They get in the big kerfuffle on the field. Nobody really knows what's going on. The announcers are speculating. Brett Bielema explains after the game what happened, and he said something that most of us didn't know, and that is, there is a gentleman's agreement that if you are the kick team and one of your guys does a T, they call it the T, he does the T, you're notifying the guys on the kickoff team that you are not intending on returning this thing, and you're doing that so that they go 3/4 speed down the field, and we don't have big collisions that are unnecessary, because we're not going to return this. That's what we're telling you. We're not returning it. Everybody lighten up, like practice, make it look good, but we're not returning it. And that was the gentleman's agreement. Brett Bielema went over there all pissed off because Shane Beamer in South Carolina gave the T signal and then returned it. And while they returned it, somebody got injured on the play. And that's why Brett Bielema was freaking out. So this rule proposal is, if somebody gives the T signal, the refs are just going to blow it dead immediately. We know what they're trying to do with kickoffs. They're trying to get rid of them anyway. So this one will be adopted, no doubt. Then there's one that's kind of strange. This one is, when they're reviewing a play and they say to us, the ruling is confirmed, ruling on the field is confirmed, or the ruling on the field stands. Well, when they say confirmed, it means they saw that it was correctly called. When they say it stands, it means there wasn't enough evidence to overturn it, right? They're giving us, a little insight without saying it. Well, now they're simply going to say the call is upheld or the call is overruled. They're not going to give us that insight into it anymore. And they're saying the reason they're not going to do that is because it takes the referee too much time during the replay to figure out which one of those he's going to say. And that's obviously nonsense. They don't want to they don't want to give out any more information than they have to. So They only have to tell us if it's upheld or if it's overturned, and that's all they want to tell us. And I don't know exactly why we can't know that little extra bit of information or not, but that's the way it's going to be. This one will get adopted. Additionally, FCS is going to be allowed to use the comms system. It took forever to get this into the FBS because they didn't want to make an unfair advantage for the haves versus the have-nots, the schools that could afford it versus the schools that couldn't. So because of that, it was illegal for everybody. Well, they've made it legal in the FBS, and now they've made it legal in the FCS, but it's still a very costly system. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess the best of the best will have it, and a lot of them won't. But it is going to be legal now. And those are all the rule proposals that'll be voted on in April. And that's fantastic. But let's get to some of your fantastic comments before we wrap this puppy up. We start with Lisa Scherer. Lisa says, Podfather says Oregon tampering with and targeting with 6 of our guys. Wonder whether Jelani's one of them that the Ducks are after. I don't know, but I don't know who Podfather is either. That team out west, maybe we could ask him. Man, what's going on? I don't love how Oregon is going about things lately. Oregon does lack that tradition and history that the big boys like Bama and Ohio State have. The tampering is a bummer. Don't like that. Good show, Juck. Go Ducks. Now, that's a guy who just calls it like he sees it. I respect that. And I feel like if I was an Oregon fan and I found out they were, at the crux of a bunch of tampering and trying to do things like that, which we don't know to be fact, but that would irritate me. That's something that would irritate me if I was an Oregon fan. So I appreciate him saying that. The Glass City Buck, that is Toledo, for those of you who don't know. I think I went maybe 35 years before I knew that. So there you go. The Glass City says Oregon has won 0 national championships. And he is saying that, of course, in response to me saying that Oregon is without a doubt one of the premier programs in college football right now, one of the top 4 programs in this current era, which has nothing to do with national championship. Pitt has 9 national championships. Minnesota has 6 national championships. Are they relevant? No. Oregon is most definitely 100% relevant right now. And if you were to pick the next team to win a national championship, Mr. Glass City, tell me the next 3. Tell me the next 3. You got to bet $500 on 3 teams. Pick your 3. The next 3 teams to win a national championship, you bet $500. I guarantee you Oregon's one of your 3. Guaranteed. And that says it all. Don Kamer says, favorite Buckeyes pod YouTube. That I think he's talking about us. Keller saturation is much better without the Clem Sucks helmet in the front. Now, this I'm confused because I know you're talking about the Clemson helmet in the front. However, when you talk about the color saturation, do you mean it? Because I don't know if you caught this episode, but I came on here and somebody told me that the Buckeye jerseys on the wall looked like Clemson jerseys because the color saturation was off. So are you just making a joke that just happens to be exactly what they told me that I shared on the show? Because I think there's a possibility of that. I need some clarification. Please, Don. By the way, thank you so much. Deech says, these rankings are not always correct. As long as our coaches are getting the guys that they value, I'm good. And that is 100% correct. And that is why when I talk about Keenan Bailey being excellent at recruiting so far since he's been at Ohio State, and I talk about Nate Roberts, I don't say that Nate Roberts is a 4-star outside the top 100. I say that Keenan Bailey got his number 1 target. When I talk about Matt Guerrieri and I talk about Fahim Delane, I don't say Matt Guerrieri got the number 7 safety in the country. I say he got his number 1 target. That is much different than when we talk about a coach who has not been hitting on his first round of guys or his second round of guys and is dropping down to his third round of guys. That's a totally different ball game. When you're working your way down the board, now it becomes an issue. And now you're not living up to the standard that you've set. See what I'm saying? Also, when we talk about edge rushers, very, very seldom are those rankings wrong, because that is pretty much the easiest spot to decipher, even from just a regular novice football fan, who the freaks are when it comes to that position when you're watching film. You can pick the freaks out if you know very little about football. Steven says, Juck, why do you and everybody else keep calling the Big 18 the Big 10? It hasn't been the Big 10 since 1990 when Penn State made it the Big 11. And if you're keeping score, that was 35 years ago. In 2010, it became the Big 12. In 2014, it became the Big 14. In 2024, it became the Big 18. Seems as though you and everybody else are ignoring 8 of the 18 schools by calling it the Big 18 and the Big 10. Steven is right. Why don't we change this? Why don't we? We keep calling it the Big 10. It's not the Big 10 forever, even though when Penn State came in, we changed the logo. You guys remember the logo? We changed the logo. The Big 10 logo had a little 11 hidden inside of it. It was pretty cool. I got to find it before we move any further. I found it. Check it out, guys. All right, so you guys remember this, or maybe you never caught it back then, but we were the Big 10. Penn State joined the conference, and they changed the logo, and look at the T. You see the T there? You see the inverted 11? So the Big 10 with 11 teams, which I thought was clever as hell at the time. And it still is. But, you know, with the Big 10 and the SEC on the verge of a massive merger in the next decade, you know, the name is going to be long forgotten. What are they going to call it when it merges? You either go with a combination of the two names there, or you come up with a totally different name that you can both agree on. I don't know. Maybe we should try to start thinking of what the best name will be for that, because unfortunately, I think it's coming. Anyway, guys, that's our show today. I appreciate you all so much. 1 million views at Juck on Bucks. You guys are the best. Please like, subscribe. And some people say do all that good stuff. It's not good stuff. It's a chore. I appreciate those of you who take the time to do it every day. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. Juck on Bucks out.